call to order for a Watertown City Council meeting for September 15th of 2025. Please rise while we have a special guest, County Commissioner Lee Gable, lead us in prayer. Just make sure the red light is on, Lee.
Yeah, let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for all that you provide, and we thank you for our participatory form of government that we have in this country, that we have in our community, where whether we're constituents and voters or elected officials or working for our governments, we have a voice, we have an opportunity to participate and enjoy the fact that you created us in your image. And so we ask for wisdom for these servants, that you would give them wisdom to understand the facts of each issue that they're addressing, give them wisdom to take the right decision. And also I just want to lift up our country to you at this time of stress and kind of discombobulation with all that's going on. And again, I ask that you would help us to, within our community, to honor each other as your image bearer, as we dialogue, as we debate, as we talk, especially about those controversial things. Help us to always seek facts, to want to understand the truth, so that we can make wise decisions, whether it's in a personal life or whether it's as a government official. In your Son's most precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Finance Officer Bob Zine, please find out who's here.
Okay. Peters, absent. Shetty,
Here.
Allen,
Here.
Hoyer,
Here.
Pauline,
Here.
Mormon,
Here.
Jurens.
Here.
Thank you.
Quorum is established. Chair will ask right now if there is anybody who would like to recuse or abstain on any vote tonight. Councilman Hoyer.
I will be recusing from 12 Alpha and then abstaining from 13 Delta, understanding that there is no vote on 13 Delta, but just as it goes to the future vote, I'll be
Okay.
abstaining.
12 Alpha. Thank you very much, Councilman. Anybody else? All right. I will take a motion to approve tonight's agenda. Motion made by Councilman Hoyer, seconded by Councilman Allen. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the agenda. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We're on to open forum. If there's anyone here who would like to address the council on something that is not on tonight's agenda, now is your time to do so. I'll close the open forum. We'll go straight into item 10A, an authorization for the city manager to accept a contract for services between Amoresco and the city of Watertown for a budgeted facility condition assessment. City Manager Steger.
Thank you, Mayor. The item before you today is a contract to hire Amoresco, a nationwide facility consulting firm, to conduct an assessment of 16 of our facilities. This contract is going to be about $4,000 per facility, and the result of the facility assessment will be a report assessing various conditions of the buildings that we own within the city. And this will assist us with future planning as we plan for major repairs and upgrades. This comes with the recommendation of the staff, who has reviewed proposals. This is the lowest proposal that we received at $66,000. The next proposal was close to the $100,000 budget. Staff is available if you have any questions. Otherwise, I'll stand by for any questions as well.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to authorize the acceptance? Motion made by Councilman Shetty, seconded by Councilman Jurens. Let's open it up for discussion. Council? Councilman Shetty.
Just a quick question. Is this, like common practice? Is this something new we're trying? I guess what it's been the history and as a city and in this kind of a contract?
I believe this is the first time the city has had a comprehensive assessment of all facilities. I will say it's not an uncommon practice in the private sector with companies and organizations that own real estate or lease buildings that may have some future maintenance costs associated with them.
Any follow-up? Councilman Mormon.
I'd just like to say I support doing this study because we do have a lot of property, buildings in the city that are very old, that the city owns, and it's good to know if we got issues coming at us here in order to plan our budgets for the future and to not get blindsided by suddenly a massive expense that we could have discovered ahead of time if we were looking.
Council, anything more? Councilman Hoyer.
I just want to touch base on this too. Is there anything comparable in-state that can provide this service, or is this the kind of leading expert in the area?
There was a state firm that did present a proposal. They are an architectural firm, and they were right around $100,000. So I think the combination of the low bid as well as the specific expertise, I would recommend that we go with the Maresco.
Understood.
Council? I actually have just a few questions, I think, for the public that might be watching. So what all goes into these inspections?
There is a interview with staff to understand the building. There's a review of plans, and then there is an actual walkthrough of each facility and a review of the major electrical and mechanical systems as well as the structure of the building itself. And then following that, there is a report writing phase where each building will have a complete report prepared, including some predictive life estimates on the major systems in the buildings. And that whole process through the 16 buildings will take us through about May of 2026. So it would be nice to have budgetary planning numbers for this cycle, but unfortunately, it takes some time to get into the detail of all of the facilities.
All right, and follow-up on that is the goal being what for the public? I mean, they're seeing us spend this money, and what's the return on investment for this money?
The goal will be to look ahead in future budgets and ensure that we are budgeting for the major items that will need to be replaced in facilities on a proactive schedule. What we have encountered in current issues is we reactionary address issues. For instance, if a boiler has a problem or an air conditioning system has a problem, then we're coming to the council and asking for budget supplements to address issues as they arise. This will allow us to be proactive in the planning, and it may also lead us in some of the facilities to make decisions about whether or not we want to continue with the building in our portfolio.
Thank you very much. I think that was helpful information for everybody in the city. So any other questions, council? The motion is to authorize the contract. All those in favor will say aye, opposed nay. Finance Officer Bob Zine, please call the roll.
Okay. Shetty?
Aye.
Allen?
Aye.
Hoyer?
Aye.
Helene?
Aye.
Mormon?
Aye.
Jurens?
Aye.
Motion was unanimous. Motion carries. Item 11A is a first reading of an ordinance, of a revised ordinance of the City of Watertown to amend Ordinance Chapter 5.03 and Title 18 in relation to the public right-of-way. We'll go to City Engineer Justin Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor. Staff is going through ordinances, and Title 18 is the next up relating to right-of-way management. Most of these changes are clarifications and updates. There are some sections of Chapter 5 that are proposed to be moved to Title 18 because they make a little bit more sense. They're related more to right-of-way than they are to the building codes and floodplains. So I guess with that, I'll stand by with any questions.
And this is a first reading, no need for a motion, but we will take questions and we invite them. Councilman Mormon.
Could you just explain a little bit more and expound on the changes you're making? I know our internet's down. That's kind of one reason why I'm asking the question is I can't bring it up to look at it myself right here. And
I'm trying to go from memory. I know the Chapter 5 ordinances relate to utility cuts, materials on street, I think there's a third one, but those are the right-of-way permits that are being moved to right-of-way management. There's it's actually about building numbering in Title 18. That's being moved to Chapter 5 because that makes more sense with the building code. And the fire marshal it's changing it from city engineer to fire marshal, which makes a little bit more sense as well, that they would address buildings. There's I'm drawing a blank of what else there is. I apologize.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Allen.
The large section on permit to excavate, that's just been moved elsewhere, right?
Correct. Yep.
Thank you.
Councilman Shetty.
Yeah, and I believe it was like superintendent of the street department getting moved, I think, under HR or some of the duties or something like that, I believe was in there, was one of the things that listed.
Yep. That was those duties of superintendent. They're already covered by the HR policies, so we didn't think they necessarily needed to be in the ordinance.
Right, yep, so that was in there, and then also some snow removal wording, things like that with boulevards and whatnot, with curbs or no curbs, so amongst others, yep.
Councilman Hoyer.
I see that we have sidewalk cafes relocating and amending. With it now being required to be renewed every 3 years as opposed to just never needing to be removed, is there a fee assessed on top of that every 3 years, or what's the detailing with that?
I don't believe there is a fee associated with that one.
Okay, just more so confirming that the business is continuing to operate using that?
Yep.
Okay, fair enough.
Mayor,
City Manager.
2 points. First of all, a question for the IT team. Do we have the ability to bring the full agenda up on the screen? And secondly, just to point out for the council, before the second reading of the ordinance, when you do get access to your computer, there's a pretty detailed list of what is changing, why, and also why it is changing in the ordinance, point by point.
All right, thank you. Any further questions for the council? All right. City Manager Stager, is it okay if we go on?
Yes.
Even without the agenda? Item 12A is an application for a transfer of ownership of a retail malt beverage and South Dakota Farm wine license and video lottery license from Rodney Parent, doing business as River Card Casino, to Shirley Parent, doing business as River Card Casino at the same location. We go to our finance officer, Kristen Bobzien.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Yes, in front of the council is a transfer, and this is purely ownership, so no location. All fees have been paid, and the notice has been published, so everything's in order. If there's any questions, I can answer them. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I'll open a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to testify on this item? I'll close the public hearing, open it up for council action. Can I get a motion to approve the application? Motion made by Councilman Shetty, seconded by Councilman Jerns. Thank you, gentlemen. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the application. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item 12B is, we have two sections here. We will talk about them collectively, but we will vote on them separately. It is the Kenneth and Arlene Lukanen addition, annexation, and zoning. So item 1 is an approval of a resolution initiating the annexation of the tract of land, and item 2 is establishing the zoning designation of R1 single-family residential district. So we'll debate or talk about those collectively, but vote on them separately. For more information, we will go to our Community Development Manager, Brandy Hanton.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is the second reading for the annexation and zoning of this 1.97 acre parcel that currently resides within the county. It'll be annexed in as R1 Single Family Residential District. Obviously, the lot does meet the minimum lot size requirements at 1.97 acres. It is just the one single lot There is a sewer water consent decree payment that Watertown Municipal Utilities will manage that or facilitate that collection of payment. And then they also will collect, or there is a trunk sewer assessment fee that'll be collected at the time of platting. And with this one, upon notice, so you actually have to connect to city services for sanitary sewer within 60 days following annexation. But since we will have to coordinate with Watertown Municipal Utilities, we will send the property owner notice when they are to connect so that that can be done concurrently, because that can take some time, which would exceed the 60 days that ordinance calls out upon notice by the city. Other than that, there is no park dedication with this property that was approved by the park board because it's just one piece of property that will not be subdivided further. It has existing residential structures and accessory buildings that also, it could not be subdivided because of what the layout of the property and the existing structures are. There's an existing recreational trail along Golf Course Road. And actually, to step it back, this is located along Golf Course Road and then east of the Prairie Winds Golf Course. So with that, I will stand by if there's any questions I can answer.
I'm pretty sure Councilman Allen and myself have hit a few golf balls in that field. So, yeah. But with that said, again, I will talk about both issues at once, vote on them separately. So I will open a public hearing if there's anyone who would like to testify on this. I'll close the public hearing, although I do recognize that you are here if there are any questions, so thank you for being here. But I know Brandy can handle them as well. I will close the public hearing, open it up for council action. Can I first get a motion to approve the resolution? Motion made by Councilman Allen, seconded by Councilman Moorman. Any specific questions on on either one, but first on the approval of the resolution? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the resolution. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item 2 is establishing the zoning designation. Can I get a motion to approve the zoning designation? Motion made by Councilman Schutte. Need a second. Seconded by Councilman Allen. Any specific questions on this? Hearing none, the motion is to establish the zoning designation as R1. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We're on to item 12C, a second reading of an ordinance authorizing the finance officer to certify the property tax levy to the Cottington County Auditor. City Manager Stager, tell us more about this.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the second reading of the property tax ordinance for 2026. This represents a request from the property taxpayers in line with recently passed state law. And so this is following inflation guidelines as well as a portion of additional taxes raised on new property developed within the community. Just as a reference point, the mill levy or dollar amount paid per $1,000 is anticipated to be reduced about 9% year over year from 2025. And so although we are raising about $221,000 in additional taxes, the amount assessed per each property is actually going down on a percentage basis. I'll stand by for any questions.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to authorize the certification of the levy? Motion made by Councilman Allen, seconded by Councilman Schutte. Let's open it up for questions and conversations. Councilman Hoyer.
I guess my question with it would be, we have some state legislature now, right, that caps this at the moment. Do we run the risk, and I know that we're capped and stuff, I'm not advocating for higher taxes or anything, but how does this affect our budget overall with the reduction? Are we still going to be able to maintain our essential services, be able to maintain our roads? How does that affect the budget going forward?
So from a budget standpoint going forward, it limits our ability to raise property taxes to fund future projects or future governmental expenditures. Historically, the city of Watertown has voluntarily applied a cap that is essentially the 3% or inflation that is in line with what the new state law guides us to do. So at least in the short term, it's business as usual, because even without the passage of the new law, this quite likely would be the same levy that the finance officer would have proposed. Now, going forward, as we look at needs in the community, property tax is something we won't be able to go do through the levy. We still could do a general obligation bond through the property tax side if we needed to. It has been quite a while since the city of Watertown has done a general obligation bond. The last time was actually the event center bond. So I don't think it's going to have a huge impact even in the longer term for us.
Sure. I think the biggest thing for me is just knowing that we do have a plan in place going ahead to make sure that we are still able to meet our budgetary needs. I don't think levying a tax is really where we need to go. Of course, we have other ways where sales tax community, sales tax state, so focusing on those methods, but good. Sounds like we have a good grasp of it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Comments? Motion is to authorize the certification. All those in favor will say aye, opposed nay. Finance Officer Bob Zine, please call the roll.
Okay. Shetty?
Aye.
Allen? Aye. Hoyer?
Aye.
Helene?
Aye.
Mormon?
Aye.
Jurens?
Motion carries. Item 13A is an approval of a resolution of acceptance for Willow Creek Village 5th Edition on behalf of the developers, Willow Creek Development Incorporated. We go to our city engineer, Justin Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor. I think if you don't mind, I'll speak to both of these, A and B.
Yes, please do.
The resolution acceptance is the final step in the development process, right before the city formally takes over the street and all the public infrastructure. The developer has completed the necessary items to meet our engineering design standards, and we recommend approval. The A is Willow Creek Village 5th, which is Overlook Court. I don't know if IT could share my screen. Well, Overlook Court is just south of Willow Creek Drive, adjacent to Willow Creek. And then item B is Morris First Edition on 7th Avenue, which is on the other side of Willow Creek.
Thank you.
There we go. So this is Overlook Court, and that's item A, and then item B is over this stretch right over here. With that, I'll stand by for questions.
Thank you very much. Again, I will allow council or encourage council to have leeway to talk on both items, but first, can I get a motion to approve the resolution of acceptance for Willow Creek 5th Edition? Or Willow Creek Village 5th Edition? Motion made by Councilman Shetty. Need a second. Seconded by Councilman Allen. Thank you much. Any questions on either item? Councilman Hoyer.
So they're all completed right now. I'm just kind of curious, with all the rainfall that we had this summer, how did it look like for water movement in that area? Just because it is historically near a floodplain and stuff. It seemed like it handled it well. I'm just curious if we actually had figures on how all that was moving and if we had any buildup or anything.
All that Overlook Court, Ridge Court, that all flows to that pond that's shown on the screen. The pond did fill up and it drained just like you'd expect.
Great.
It's nice when things happen how you want them to. Councilman Mormon.
Do we still check the sidewalk? Does city staff still go out and check sidewalks for ADA compliant slope?
Yes, we check that with building permits generally, yes.
Okay. And then just one other question. Are we still televising the storm and sanitary sewers before we approve them?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? The motion is to approve the resolution. All those in favor will say aye, opposed nay. Finance Officer Bob Zine.
Okay. Shetty?
Aye.
Allen?
Aye.
Hoyer?
Aye.
Helene?
Aye.
Mormon?
Aye.
Jurens?
Motion carries unanimously. Item 12B, can I get a motion to approve the resolution of acceptance for Morris First Edition Phase 2?
I'll make a motion.
Motion made by Councilman Mormon, seconded by Councilman Jurns. Any discussion on this? Hearing none, all those in favor of the resolution, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item C is an authorization for the city manager to sign an MOU or Memorandum of Understanding for the Calvin Industrial Park Lift Station Project Number 2428. City Manager Steger.
Thank you, Mayor. Before you tonight is a memorandum of understanding between the city, Watertown Municipal Utilities, Cottington County, and the Watertown Development Company. The memorandum of understanding applies a 25% cost share on each party for the local portion of developing a lift station and a sanitary sewer line to provide service in the Calvin Industrial Park. In addition to the park itself, there's approximately 300 acres south of the Calvin Industrial Park that can also be serviced by the sanitary sewer system in the future, and that property is future annexation property to be developed for industrial purposes. We recommend approval. There is a range specified of between 235 and 285,000 per partner. The reason why there is a range is we are currently applying for an additional state grant that could reduce the local cost. However, we would like to get the memorandum of understanding approved so that we could move forward with finalizing the design and beginning construction in the spring on the lift station and the sanitary sewer project.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to authorize the signature on the MOU? Motion made by Councilman Mormon,
Second.
seconded by Councilman Hoyer. Any discussion on this?
Do we have the ability to pull it up on a map?
Let's see. Can we pull that up on a map? And while we are seeing about that, I'll just ask City Manager Steger, the other three entities, have they already approved it, or are they waiting for us, or what's the timing on all this?
2 out of the 3 entities have approved. I believe the Watertown Municipal Utility will approve at their next board meeting. The county has approved and the WDC has approved.
Thank you.
I just feel it would be useful to know exactly
Yeah.
what we're talking about and let the public know where that is.
It is
too.
helpful. Yep, Councilman Shetty?
Yeah, I remember earlier on when we talked about this, there was like $1 million bill that we were wondering how that was going to get reached or get taken care of. So appreciate the work to get the different entities involved. Also, I believe this lift station, we can take out 1 or 2 other lift stations, I believe it's going to replace, so we have a couple less to service. I just want to follow up on that.
Potentially.
Potentially.
And we will come back after some design work is done. There's a possibility of removing some other lift stations and also providing service to other parts of the city. However, those changes will come with additional costs that we need to fund. So this is the current design with force mains in place is what the EDA grant is covering. If we can find a way to fund some additional project, we could take out lift stations if the math makes sense.
Councilman Hoyer, the map is up. Did you want to say anything about it?
Oh, I was just hoping maybe we could point out some landmarks and describe where this is affecting things.
If I could.
Yes, please.
So this area, the gray area here is the Calvin Trade Center area. The additional acreage that Alan was talking about is right here. And then there's the lift station would be here, and the force main would pump to the wastewater plant up here. This is 29th Street. Walmart's right here. Just kind of give you a reference of where we're at. South bypass, right there on the corner.
All right. And Councilman Mormon?
just for the public's information with the money that we'll be spending on this, which obviously is not cheap, but essentially, if we don't put this in, we can't develop to the southeast there. So it's money well spent, and it opens up the door for a lot more development and businesses to come in because the infrastructure's there.
Thank you. Councilman Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to highlight the collaborative nature of this approach. For the citizens of Watertown, this is kind of a rare thing that we've collaborated with the WDC and municipal utilities and all the entities that are involved. And I think that's a key to affordability in this particular case. And also, it bodes well for the future that we're committed to working together to try and improve the economic situation in the community. So I applaud you for bringing all that together.
I agree. It's a great idea. I'll be succinct on that. Any further comments? All right. The motion is to authorize the city manager to sign the MOU. All those in favor will say aye, opposed nay. Finance Officer Bob Zine.
Okay, Shetty,
Aye.
Allen,
Aye.
Hoyer,
Aye.
Pauline,
Aye.
Mormon,
Aye.
Jurens.
Aye.
Vote is unanimous to authorize the signature. Thank you very much. Finally, on our topic, or on our agenda tonight is a restaurant liquor license fee discussion. City Manager Stager.
Thank you, Mayor. Since our last work session on the restaurant liquor license, we have convened a couple of small groups of council members that have an interest in changes, and we've discussed ordinance changes that can cause some contrast between a full liquor license and a restaurant liquor license. And what we have before you on the screen today are some potential changes we recommend, and this recommendation is made with council input from the small group as well as city staff. We recommend that we bring forward an ordinance at our next regular council meeting on October 6th, modifying existing ordinance to place these restrictions on a full restaurant liquor license. Following changes in ordinance, then, as a council, you can debate what an appropriate fee might be for the issuance of a license with restrictions. I think part of the struggle in the debate and discussion up to this point has been we haven't had a clear delineation of why the licenses are different. And so staff is bringing this forward to make an attempt in ordinance to show that a restaurant liquor license has more restrictions and is not the same as a full liquor license. And with that background, then, you can place an appropriate fee on the license. So I'd ask is maybe we just go through 1 through 7 and give each of you an opportunity to either raise additional questions or to concur with the recommendation. And based on your feedback today, we will bring forward then an ordinance in red line form for a first reading on October 6th. With that, I'll stand by and, well, I'll ask if
Actually, City Manager Stager, could you just go through the 7 restrictions real quick?
Sure. So the first one is to place a restriction on the hours of operation. A current full liquor license holder may operate their establishment until 2 a.m. On the restaurant liquor license, this would require the establishment to close at 12 a.m. The second is an explicit prohibition on any video lottery operations at the restaurant site. Video lottery is a big component of the full liquor license, and this provides a clear contrast between the two. We also have discussed in the past the transferability of the license, and we propose that the license may be transferable if it's transferred in conjunction with selling an entire restaurant business. But we are trying to, by ordinance, not establish a secondary market for the license itself, and to be very clear that this is a license for a restaurant operation. In terms of the certification, we propose that rather than staff going through the books and records provided by the license holder, we would ask the license holder to engage with a CPA firm on an agreed-upon purpose engagement to have the firm certify the percentage of food and alcohol sales. The fifth requirement, the annual reporting, to make it clear that we are looking at percentage of food versus alcohol. We propose that we have a definition of items that can be consumed so that things such as T-shirts or mugs or other type of products sold can't skew the percentage. Number 6 is one that I don't know that we need, but it's in here for discussion purposes, and it's a prohibition on a temporary special event transfer. If the restaurant is going to be close on the percentage of food versus beverage or alcoholic beverage sales, they really wouldn't want to temporarily transfer the license anyways, so I don't know that we need it, but it just makes it very clear. And then finally, we discussed what would an appropriate penalty be if a license holder doesn't meet the sales requirement. And in the past, we've talked about, well, they just purely forfeit the license. And we wanted to be clear that reapplication is permissible, and that may just be a prohibition by that particular owner for a one-year period of time.
Thank you very much, City Manager. This is just discussion, therefore I will open it up for discussion. I will give Councilman Jurgens the consideration and the respect as the person who has been bringing this. If you want to start the conversation, Councilman.
I sure will.
Thank you.
Great segue tonight on the discussion of a property tax freeze. And you are correct, Alan. I mean, this city has always said we do not want more. In fact, that general obligation bond for that event center was quite the controversial issue, and rightfully so. What that entails is finding other ways to generate sales tax revenue, to generate BBB. And I'd really like it if someone from staff, I should have prepared you for this, but I think it's fairly simple. I'd like the public to know where the BBB, what it is, and where that money comes from, and then general sales tax, what it is and where it comes from, when it relates to collections that each business in town has.
I can make a couple of comments and then can ask Kristen to add in as well. In terms of the general sales tax, we assess 1% plus 1%. Often we refer to that as the first penny and the second penny. Our sales tax level in the city for 2025 was budgeted at $10.8 million on the first penny and $10.8 million on the second penny. To generate that level of taxable revenue for the city, that means sales tax activity within the city would have to total almost $1.1 billion in the city. And if you think about the activity that's required to produce that, you just think about your own personal spending. You're not paying sales tax on your mortgage. You're not paying sales tax to the city of the purchase of an automobile. So it really gets to your consumable spending or some medical procedures or your groceries or clothing or your recreation and entertainment. The BBB is an additional 1 cent that's placed on booze, board, and there's a triple B that I'm drawing a blank on, but it's essentially the entertainment tax that's also assessed. And in the city, that is approximately 1.3 million on an annual basis. So you can see the relatively large amount, about 10% of the general sales tax that is generated on the restaurant and entertainment portion of the economy in Watertown.
So in the example of restaurants expanding or growing in this town, it may not be a huge amount, but where would the city see additional tax revenue that citizens really don't have to pay for unless they go out to visit one of these restaurants? Is that correct?
That is correct, and we would also have the ability to bring in tax revenue from visitors to the community at likely 3 cents per dollar.
Yeah. So something that's changed in Watertown in the last couple years and been an amazing change, and we've talked about the excitement here, is hockey, but there's other sporting events that have come here for a while. We just had the state baseball tournament here, and that was the first time for many, many years, and it was widely a very well-attended and a lot of people from out of town. When we start talking things that we can do, there's a lot we can't do to help this out, but when I started envisioning, and the first person who came to me with this was located out by the ice rink, and they're like one of the only out in that area, so I foresee and hope that there'd be some growth out there of restaurants and places to visit, because I think that's why we put the ice arena out in that area, is for growth. So, we talked about a lot of ways that we're not going to be able to generate revenue for the city and continue with the amenities that we provide, but we have also talked about tonight of dumping thousands and thousands of dollars into infrastructure, and that's a good thing. We've also talked about dumping thousands and thousands of dollars into TIFs, or, yeah, they don't really cost us anything, but, it's a way that we've been able to help move this machine forward. So, when I look at those things, none of them, they have plenty things to get in the way from being successful, but none of them have to do with a small town mom and pop operation restaurant trying to get going and have a dream. And being a small entrepreneur that moved to Watertown 32 years ago with not a I'm not going to say it, but you know what I'm talking about. He had just college debt is all he had to his name. I look at entrepreneurs a little differently maybe, and I look at small business and throughout this city and throughout our nation, small business people churn a lot of business, and it's kind of the heartbeat. So I looked at this barrier to entry, a fee to entry, and I'm going, what are we doing? And I guess, it's been good discussion, and I really look forward to looking at these 7 things that kind of, again, add to the restriction, but also add to the popularity of the full liquor license right now. Had that full liquor license not gone up to where it's at, and I shared it publicly, one of the latest sales is $225,000. Now, we've had these restrictions in place for these fees for small restaurants for 16 years, and all that value has done is gone up. And that's good. That's good for those people who took the risk, who worked their tails off, who maybe even had to go through bankruptcy once or twice just to get here today and survive. That is just commendable. It's commendable, and they deserve to have value like that. That's not what I'm saying. What it's done, though, it's really made it an unlevel playing field for the small mom and pop operation who says, in order for my business model to work, and in order for me to get this finance through the bank, I have to be able to do some things. I may be able to cook and grill the best steak in the world, but a lot of people like to drink a bourbon with it. That is part of the attraction, but that is also part of them making a go. Of them going, there's margins here and there's ways for not only the business to survive, but the server. Every server that works in these places gets usually paid a percentage of that tip. Most of us look at 10, 15, 20, some 25%. They're tipping that. But it's usually a percentage of the ticket. And so I just think this is not only an advantage to have something like this happen for a small restaurant, but also for the servers that work there, and the possibility of a few people moving to town to start one or two of these. So that's all I have for now, and I look forward to the discussion of these items on here. The time, you want to just go to the time. This is, the first one is hours of operation. I think it's a wise limitation, and I think it's a good one for a little discussion, and would like to hear what everyone else thinks about there being a midnight deadline or a 1 a.m. deadline.
All right. Councilman Jerns, are you done for now?
Yeah.
Of course, you can talk more. I mean, that's it.
Good.
But thank you very much for that. I'm going to encourage council to first focus upon the 7 restrictions that are being placed there, because, as I said the last time we discussed this, without understanding what restrictions are on the license, it's hard to understand what the value of that license would be. So let's first focus upon the 7 restrictions, and then we can open it up for a discussion on the potential fee. Are there, Councilman Allen?
Thank you, Mayor. Question about the video lottery piece of this. If I have a beer and wine sales, there's no restriction that I can't do video lottery, right?
You need the license.
Right,
And,
right.
and what we are suggesting in this ordinance is we would explicitly prohibit having video lottery under another license or any other loophole at the establishment. And we'll need to get the language right to be clear that that's your intent, is no video lottery.
Yeah, and I'm not advocating that we need more video lottery in Watertown, because I think we've got plenty. It's probably a very competitive business. But the point would be that people who have beer and wine licenses, I'll use the Granary as one example, they also have video lottery. So they're a restaurant, essentially, convenience store, I mean, they're a bunch of things, but no restriction on them to supplement with video lottery. And so we're saying we're going to carve this out, and we're talking a lot about level playing fields, for example, and this would be one area where, no, you can't do that. I do think that there's a pretty significant difference between the restaurant liquor license and a full liquor license already, in terms of it being an asset or not an asset. And I would just point out that if I want to borrow the money to get the restaurant liquor license, probably no one's going to loan me $100,000 to do that currently. I would have to have some sort of collateral, because the risk is if they don't meet the 60-40 split, they just lose the $100,000. So I think that's a pretty substantial difference. If I bought the liquor license, and I'll use Tom Bolt as an example, who said if there was one available, he'd snap it up in an instant. So he doesn't have any qualms about spending $200 or $200 and whatever dollars for a full liquor license, because it is an asset, and there's a value in that. There's risk involved in the restaurant liquor license. So I bring that up not so much because of the video lottery question here necessarily, because I'm not an advocate for more video lottery, I'd be fine with restricting it. But it does seem to me that we're placing potentially quite a few restrictions on something that is a pretty risky thing, that some of the folks at our last council meeting who spoke said, boy, I don't know if I could do the 60-40 split. So, you know, as a restaurant that's going to plunk down that money, there's a little bit of risk involved in that. Actually, I would say probably a lot of risk, which is why, even though it's not part of the 7, I would argue for a lower fee. And we haven't had that discussion yet, but that would be one of my concerns, is that, okay, let's make it attainable. Because I know that people said at the last meeting that, well, $100,000, that's no big deal when you're opening a restaurant. But I think it is if you're trying to fold another additional $100,000 into the purchase of a building for hundreds and hundreds of thousands, and et cetera, et cetera. So that's my only comment relative to that and the whole restaurant liquor license discussion. But in terms of the rest of the 7, I like the annual reporting. I think the certification process would be great. The transferability restriction seems reasonable to me. I am less solid on the special event piece, because there again, it would be the restaurant owner who would say, I'm going to take that risk, even though, you know, I'm going to do this special event and I'm going to sell a lot of liquor. They could also be selling food, I assume, as well. So, you know, I am a little bit less convinced of the need for the special event restriction. But the penalty, I'd be fine with that as well. So, thank you.
Councilman Hoyer.
That was the only thing that I was going to toss out for you guys, is that if you do it on the special event license, I would just warn that it might inhibit somebody if they're going to do to some type of catering for like a big event or like, you know, whatever, family reunion, wedding or something. Also with the special event license, is that the same one where you can only do like 4 a year anyway?
I think it is.
Okay.
It
so,
is.
I mean, would kind of say that Doug's probably on the right track with that, but ultimately, it's up to you guys. I just think it would limit them if they were going to do some type of catering. Outside of that, though, I don't see anyone going for gold on that, but, yeah.
If the consensus of the council is to remove the special event prohibition, I'd like to gain that consensus today so we can bring forward to you an ordinance in your final form at the next meeting.
Okay, and I will get to that after I keep the discussion open on all 7. But I will make sure that we circle back and get some kind of consensus on that. Councilman Schutte?
Well, interestingly enough, that was the one item I was going to bring up, was the special event license. I questioned that one when you were reading through those. Councilman Hoyer has, I'm sure, you know, has a little perspective he brought as well, and I guess I could see that being one we could consider. I'd be for holding off on that one, because there's going to be some cases where it might work for them to be able to do an event, as he mentioned. So, yeah, I'd be for tweaking that part of it. As far as everything else, I guess one thing I want to say, just on the scope of everything we're talking on this, is, you know, as much as the vote and the decision we make here is important, but the process to get to the vote is just as important. And so I really appreciate, you know, early on, it got on the radar, you know, by getting it on an agenda item here last month. However, which is good that we're talking, but I'm glad that we've pumped the brakes and are discussing this and taking the time to work out some ordinance changes to even separate out the restaurant liquor license versus the privately owned ones. This is helping me even to take some time to talk with more people, and for even some from the public to be able to have a voice and be able to share more on this. Listen to our discussions. I know there are some that wanted to listen to our discussions this evening. This might even help us come together as a community in this subject to be able to, where it's not so divisive, I believe. So I appreciate this, and I'm for these changes that we're doing here. I appreciate those who put the work in to get us here. And then, yes, we will discuss how much the value of the fee should be. So,
Councilman Hoyer, I'm sorry if I cut you off. Did you have a follow-up?
No, I don't think so. I just know that some of the concern the last time when we were discussing this was the ability to transfer the license, kind of like they do for just normal events. It wasn't a special event license, it was just normal transferability. And I just want to make sure it's clear, however that was discussed, that it would operate under this.
The license that we have is a special event license, so I believe all of our transfers are considered special events. Our finance officer or
Governors too, yeah. I know what he's talking about. Oops. There we go. You would have to decide if they apply both to what we call the seasonal special events, which are the weekly, which is what they do at the Foundation Plaza, or whether it's just the normal special event license, which is limited to 4 per year. The seasonal event licenses, seasonal special event licenses, which is your Thursday Night Live, are once a week for at least, or can be up to 13 weeks, I think. Yep. So,
So there's that one, but then also, I mean, like when we do, like, say, camel races, there's usually a restaurant group that'll be approached for that, and then they go do that. What license are they, what are they doing in that scenario?
just the special event.
Okay,
They're
they are
using
doing
up
a
one-
special
They're using
event.
up one of their 4. Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
good to know.
Before I ask a question or make a comment, I just want to make sure I give everyone else a chance to speak. Okay. I would actually ask a question. But first off, I want to say thank you to my good friend and esteemed colleague from Ward E for bringing this forward and being very, I'm talking to you, Lynn. No, I want to thank you for, you came forward with this idea that you believed in, and when there was obstacles that were presented, you were open to hearing them. And I thank you for that, because a lot of times people would be closed to hearing that because they'd say, oh, wait, this is a good idea. Why are you questioning it? The questions were coming from a good place, I think, just as your intentions were a good thing. I think at least I would say, my intentions were to respect those who currently have a full liquor license, but also for allowing the possibility of more development in Watertown, which I agree with. So finding that balance is something that we saw actually between Tom Bolt and Sean Dempsey at the very first meeting when this came up, that they were saying that possibly there is room for agreement, but we just had to get there. So it might have taken a long time, but I think we're very close to that right now. I want to say I thank you. I agree with the limitation on the video lottery, and I would say there's a even extra level of protection for anybody with a full liquor license, because let's say if someone were trying to skirt it and just put, let's say they own one of the downtown buildings and then they just wanted to put a little bar right next to it, well, that has to come to the city council for approval. And I think we would see through that pretty easily about what the intention is trying to do, is skirt the rules. So I think that would be something where the council would have the ability to vote that down if that was their wish. But that is even an extra level of protection on item number 2. On item number 6, I actually would ask a question from Councilman Jurgens or Councilman Hoyer, any of the councilmen. I would say, if it is the intention to allow the catering, would it be possible, would it be preferential to just say you could have a special catering event license and not even just I'm not necessarily, to allow only catering, not, when I think of catering, I'm thinking of lunches where people do not drink a lot of booze or at all, like corporate events.
You can already do that.
Yeah,
There's no alcohol, so there's no regulation on that.
okay.
The biggest thing is that they wouldn't be able to get into a wedding market or something like that, most likely. I mean, there's ways they can do it where the wedding supplies their own alcohol, that kind of stuff, but like, you only get 4. I don't actually think they have much ability to compete anyway with it, but I don't think you'd have an issue with it, but that's just speaking from the industry side of the house.
Sure.
But your other limitations here are, in line to really differentiate them more.
I was just thinking, I did have some concern on the special events because I do think some of those are prized in the community. They're large, esteemed venues, is what I'm thinking. And I think that some of that prestige and basically it's also a marketing ability for some of these restaurants and establishments. And that has a lot of value to come at an event where you have 400, 600 people, the top of Watertown society, and you have a captive audience to show off your stuff. And I think that is something of value. And that's why I was in favor of having some limitations upon the special event licenses, is partly because of that thinking. City Manager Steger?
I would point out that a special event transfer will also come before council if one of these license holders wanted to apply for one. So you would have a chance to review it.
Councilman Hoyer?
Oh, I was just gonna toss out, I mean, the events that you're describing already have on-site liquor licenses. I mean, that's the Goss, that's, Country Road Barn's out in the county, but, otherwise the event center has their own business doing that. So I don't think you're gonna see that. I would mean more so like if somebody rents a venue somewhere, like say the barn south of town or something, well, as long as it's in city limits, there's already other limitations to it. And so like, I don't see them doing a lot of it. I just don't know. It's up to you guys if you want to limit that, but.
It was just an idea that I had.
Because like right now, the way it stands is that any business, even if they just have wine and beer, can get a special event license, and then that gives them the ability to do liquor for those 4 events anyway, doesn't it? Yeah, so as it's written, I mean, you can already achieve it.
Thank you. I will ask council, does anyone have a reason to take out the restrictions 1 through 5 or number 7? I mean, this is not a vote, I'm just saying if you have an issue. On, Councilman Mormon?
I'm not saying to take it out, but just on number 3, because I've had some people reach out to me, allow the transfer license only in the conjunction with the transfer of ownership of the restaurant holding the license. I know when we initially started talking about this, one of the big discussions is these people don't own the licenses, therefore there's no value in them if your restaurant goes out of business or whatever, if you sell. Now, with the allowing the transfer, if I have a restaurant and I want to sell to somebody else, if I pay $50,000 or $25,000 or $75,000 for this license, and I'm going to sell my restaurant, I'm pretty sure I'm going to add $50,000 or $75,000 or $25,000 into the price to buy this restaurant, which now means I've placed value on this license. I don't know if there's some clarification anybody could give, or just something I wanted to point out, because I've had some people ask me about that, to the fact that that now places basically value of somebody owning this license.
Councilman Jerns?
I have had this discussion multiple times. In fact, Michael and I had it before we started tonight. What is the value of a restaurant that's going out of business? You usually get about 20 cents on a dollar for your equipment. You usually are lucky to be able to sell it.
And I'm not talking about restaurant going out of business. Somebody might develop a beautiful restaurant, and 5 years down the road, they want to sell it for a big profit too.
I'd be all for it.
Councilman, I'm going to ask you always to address conversation through the chair, because it's just very respectful to your colleague. I don't ever want to risk a situation where 2 people are talking at each other about something. So it's just for decorum. So Councilman Mormon, your question on that last one. Councilman Jerns had an answer, and then you followed it up.
Yeah, I was just following it up. It wouldn't necessarily be a restaurant going out of business. It could be somebody built up a restaurant that's very thriving, and how he has an opportunity to sell it for profit.
Councilman Jerns, you addressed the restaurant not doing so well. How about a restaurant that is doing well?
we have a constituent that's a full liquor license holder that I've had a second conversation with today. And he doesn't agree with us on this. That's okay. But one thing he did agree with is that it should be able to be transferred. That restricting that, he goes, is really kind of not good policy. So that's just a perspective that someone had, and when I saw it actually written out here tonight, I'm like, it's good. I like that.
Councilman Mormon, back to you.
Yeah, no, thanks, Councilman Jurgens. And I'm not saying that I want to take that out of there by any means. I'm just, for the public's knowledge, how a lot of this started was the fact that there's maybe not value in this license if you want to sell, or you lose your restaurant, or you may just be out of the 100,000 at what it's set right now. And the fact that it is transferable, I just want the public to know that this does place a value on this license now as an ownership.
Thank you. And Councilman Jurgens, if you're okay, I'd like to actually address that for just a moment, because this was something that I felt strongly about as well. But I think that the value or lack thereof of the license would be directly attributable to the success or lack thereof of the restaurant. Because a successful restaurant, you're still taking a risk if you're buying that in a transfer, because you're buying one that has a track record of success. You're hoping that you, as the new owner, can continue it. So is that really the valuation of the liquor license or the restaurant and the food and the establishment? I think that most of it would be directly related to the establishment, the food, the service, and all of that. And also, as Councilman Jurgens said earlier, if a restaurant is floundering, then essentially we're selling, for less. City Manager Steger, I cut you off.
Thank you, Mayor. The intent of this provision is to bind the license with the restaurant. And I'll just point out, earlier in this meeting, we had a family transfer of a license. We want to make sure that we've got the ability to do that with a successful restaurateur, maybe wants to pass it on to the next generation. This would provide the ability to do that. And binding the license is what we've talked about at a staff level when our city attorney wasn't present. So we just said Lisa can figure it out, but that's the intent.
Is there someone who would like to say something before I go back to Councilman Hoyer? Councilman Hoyer.
I was just going to say, words have meaning, especially in the law. And I think that's part of the reason that it's a license versus a permit. Because if it was a permit, then, you don't transfer permits to other people in a continuation. But it does make sense that in the event that you do a buyout or something like that, that it would maybe stick with it. Just because otherwise, how do you hand that off? That's like the Sweet Rainbows version of it, where you're handling it off to your son or daughter or whatever. But, if you are transferring a business, you're transferring it as is. And so it'd be kind of weird if it unstuck and then they have to come up with more funds to then pay to the city to then be where they were as the business was presented. So I can see that. And then this isn't like you're buying that location, you're going to start a totally different restaurant, and you get the license with it. This is, I am buying this business. It is that.
Correct.
Okay.
I'll go back to my question. Items 1 through 5 and number 7, are there any problems with those? Then on to item, yep, Councilman Jurgens.
Would it be good to have a little discussion on number 1? Just to get the feeling of everyone here on whether they think 1 AM is good, midnight's good, or 11 PM.
Councilman Hoyer?
Oh, I was just going to toss out whose kitchen stays open that late. So, you're going to have a challenge anyway, staying open past your kitchen times. But, maybe they kill it on food all day long. And I don't know. But I just think you're going to have challenges anyway, trying to hit that 60-40 split. And then if you have a section where you're not selling food anymore, then, there's that. But I can think of some businesses in town that are focused on a late-night crowd right now where they are selling food to them. We have one in the downtown just over here by Dock, so I don't know that they'd ever look into that. I think they're more on catching people coming off the bar scene. But, Yeah, no idea, but I think you're gonna be faced with a challenge anyway.
I think our good people at the law enforcement, at the Watertown Police Department might have an issue of a place catering to the 1:45 crowd, 1:45 a.m. crowd.
Yeah, probably.
Back to Councilman Jerns's question, does anyone have an issue with the midnight close? Councilman Shetty?
You know, in discussing this, even behind the scenes, some, 11, 12, 1. I guess I was thinking 11 or 12. I wasn't sure what was going to be proposed, so I just, trusting as we've just been discussed and I just appreciate their work and we're going to, let's go with what they were thinking was best.
I think Councilman Hoyer, I think you have that exactly right. Just looking around at the restaurants that are in existence, most of their kitchens do close, at least by 10. And then if you're going to pay to keep staff out there and sell only liquor, you're going to start skewing your percentage. With that said, I don't see any harm in keeping the midnight restriction, so I would say to keep it. Councilman Allen?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think midnight is fine. There's nothing that says that they don't close at 10. They don't have to stay open until midnight. I mean, that's just an option, and I would think most of them would make the decision that Councilman Hoyer was indicating, my kitchen's closed at 9 or 10, and I'm done. I want to send staff home, and, I'm a restaurant. I don't expect people to come in and eat, necessarily at 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night. So, I don't know. You could stay open if you wanted to, but I think it'd be a challenge.
Councilman Jerns? Back to you.
Yeah, it's good discussion. I did have an opinion of a restaurant owner that there might be a few, you guys alluded to it, that could take advantage of this after the game crowd. And I think midnight's still fine for the after the game. Those are usually done by 10, 11 o'clock. I'm trying to remember what time we got out of hockey. Most nights, last winter is usually 10. All right.
I'd also like to just encourage people, even if you're out at a hockey game or aero football game, regardless of the closest restaurant, I would encourage you to go downtown or other places in the community. There are a lot of really good establishments, so have an open mind about where to go, but always drive safe. I think I covered everything on that one. Okay. I'm going to say that I don't see any problem with 1 through 5 and 7 from the council. We'll look at number 6, special event licenses. I think we've got 2 okay with striking it over here. Personally, I don't feel strong enough about it to keep it in. So I'd be okay removing number 6. I do believe that it would police itself largely. Okay. Let's talk about cost. Council, and
Would you like me to start?
I think, yes, I want to give you that respect.
Well, thanks, Mayor. Well, a lot of discussion. I believe I'm still at, not the minimum state. I've had discussion with other councilmen. I've had discussion with the public. It gets down to philosophical reasons. I just feel like it's best to do what you can for a new business owner, especially a restaurant, realizing how challenging it is to make it for a year or two in that business. And I look at our big friends from the South, not that we want to compare, I think we really, really want to be a little bit different. There's a reason they're charging the state minimum. There's a reason they have the most licenses, even at the state minimum, because they have a market and they have people standing in line to get into their restaurants. If you're not there and you don't have a reservation, you're going to have a hard time eating in Sioux Falls on the weekends. But also I look at Fargo, I look at Grand Forks, and I I see a $30,000 entry into Grand Forks and Fargo, 32,000, give or take a couple dollars. But I also know that since we've had this discussion, other cities are waiting to say, we want to do the same thing. We want to get this lowered. We're just waiting for some of these ideas that we're seeing here on the 7, and looking at a number, because they don't want to be left in the dust. Just chatted with a banker that looked at a business plan on a deal being done in Brookings, and $100,000. I don't know if it's going to go through. I didn't want to, it wasn't my business to ask, but it was a business plan that was presented just last week in Brookings. So I know bankers are looking at this, and I know that customers of that restaurant will look at it, because somewhere, someplace, you will get charged for this fee. And that's why I still go back. I have flexibility, but I still go back to the 25,000. And I'd like to, just discuss around that number again.
Let's open it up for discussion. Councilman Shetty.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the points that I guess I am camping on right now is when the stats were brought up at a previous meeting about how the businesses that make it, the restaurants that make it in the first 2-3 years, and what that fail rate is. And, for example, having a $100,000 fee for a license, for a restaurant liquor license, to let's say if just sadly something doesn't go right and it fails in 3 years, you don't have that value of if you had the privately owned restaurant liquor license, you'd have that to be able to recoup some costs. So I am challenged a little bit by, having a high fee for something that you aren't able to recoup at all, especially if a business doesn't make it. However, then we also are playing we're in an environment where we do have the privatized license. So that's hence this conversation we've been having. These ordinance changes do help separate this out and help to where if it's a lower fee, whatever fee we come to, because I do believe we could lower it some along with the ordinance changes. So we're moving in the right direction. Now, where we land on the right price for that, but if these ordinance changes were to really separate this and not affect the privately owned liquor license, well, yeah, then let's get something done to really make it feasible for restaurants to get going and started. However, I'm not sold on 25,000 personally. I'd like to be, but again, because we have the privately owned liquor license we have to factor that in. That's the challenge on where we settle in at. So, but we are definitely going in the right direction. So I'm open to people's suggestions. I've got some numbers that I've been thinking of as well. So like 99,000, I guess.
Here he comes.
No, I'm kidding. Don't put that. No, that's not too late.
Get that in there.
Councilman Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. One question, Alan, there was another city that you were aware of that was dealing with this issue, I think. Did you get any clarification from them with regard to what their issues were?
Not yet. It is the city of Vermillion.
Okay.
They're dealing with some of the same issues, but I
Yeah.
don't think they've reached a conclusion.
Yeah, and I guess I come back to Sioux Falls as an example of them setting it at the lowest, $1 per resident kind of price, and we're not there at 25,000. We'd have to go to 23, whatever our population is, to be at the very lowest end. But I'd be supportive of 25,000 as the price of the license.
Any other further conversation? I would like to chime in on this. I would like to go back to some of the original conversations that we've had on this, which is other cities of like size of Watertown have actually sold these special restaurant liquor licenses for $100,000, which makes me wonder if the cost is actually the restrictive factor in opening a restaurant or not. I don't know. It can't be proven. However, I am willing to discuss a lowering of the fee. I will go back to the original conversation from the one other proponent we have ever heard on this, which is Tom Bolt. And even his comment, he did not ask for 25,000. His comments, to paraphrase, were, it sure would be nice to pay less. He didn't have a number in mind. When he was talking with Sean Dempsey again there, they were kind of throwing out a couple of numbers. I would say, in my mind, 25,000 is too low. I will not support that. I think that's too drastic of a reduction. I think it devalues the existing licenses too much. However, $50,000, with the restrictions that we have placed, I think you could make the argument that with the restrictions in place, a 1/4 cost compared to the full liquor license. And that's actually even a little bit less if you look at the last liquor license that was sold at $225. So this is actually less than 1/4 of the value of a full liquor license. I still think that that is eminently fair, and doing a 50% reduction right off the bat to try to spur this forward, I think that is a very good gesture on behalf of the city of Watertown to see what happens. Maybe we still don't sell any, we don't know. And at that point, then you can make the argument that cost is the restricting factor. But we would almost have to see that. I think cutting it in half, again, going back to the only other proponent we have ever heard, which is Tom Bolt, who didn't even say what price he wanted. He just said, it sure would be nice to pay less. And I really do like Councilman Jurgens' arguments about the free market, letting the free market decide, keep it at the minimum and just seeing what happens. I will go back to this, however. With the state of South Dakota's current liquor laws, there is no such thing as a free liquor market. There are so many archaic laws piled up going back almost a century ago that the free market does not exist and likely will never exist in South Dakota until the state legislature and the governor changes it. And so therefore, as much as the free market conservative in me really likes that argument, we're not dealing with that. We're not opening a new market. We are allowing new people to enter an incredibly complicated market with a lot of history on it. So I want to understand that as well. So with all of those considerations in mind, I'd be okay with 50,000. That's where I'm at. Councilman Jurgens, and please keep in mind, I said I respected you like 3 times tonight.
Still not afraid. Mayor, I have heard that since the beginning. In fact, the first call I got was from a full liquor. You're going to devalue the value of market value of my full liquor license. And I go, well, where's your proof? I'd like to know why that devalues a license that has been driven by demand, been driven by video lottery, mostly. And there's nothing wrong with that. I am absolutely ecstatic that they have something in their hands, an asset that's gone up. We've heard from a couple constituents that have owned these licenses for 25, 30 years. I remember. I was in those businesses a ton in those days. And they've almost doubled in price. And I don't see one bit of evidence, but I'd like to ask you if you have some sort of thoughts as to why it would devalue the current liquor licenses. I'm lost in that. I can't find a way or any history or I don't have any ideas on.
How about I change my terminology?
Okay.
Sorry.
You're
Councilman.
allowed to do anything.
Sorry, I apologize. I broke my own rule. I would say, can I change my terminology instead of devalue to say protect the investment of the current liquor licenses? It's a slight terminology difference, but I'm just saying, cutting it in half is still a really big step. And I think that goes a long way into getting what you're trying to accomplish. And I will say, again, the only proponent I've ever heard, outside of you, who has said 25,000, never actually said 25,000. He just said, I'd like to pay less. We did, however, hear from a lot of opponents who said, that's too low. Even some of the opponents were okay lowering it, but they just said, that is too low. So again, somewhere just trying to find some level of compromise, I think cutting it in half, which is still double than what you want, but it's less than half of what was proposed, I think that goes a long way. That's just my thought process. Councilman Shetty?
Well, I want to get on that bandwagon. I really appreciate Councilman Jurgens. And thank you for all that are working on this. And again, there's people that are going to be listening to this and have their take. They have the perspective, and we aren't all in agreement. However, I believe we are getting closer to agreement. There are some that I believe I think get on board with this. I don't think 25,000, we're going to see it come together very well. I was kind of sitting around that $50,000 mark myself. Then again, I'm still, like I say, that's why I like the debate. I like where we converse, we can talk about this, so I can, fit, what am I missing? Just like here a month ago, there's things we've brought up, the ordinance change, that wasn't even part of the initial discussion. So there's things that now I believe we are making a wiser decision because of the debate, because of the work we're doing behind the scenes. And so now in dialing in this price for liquor license fee, that's where I'm not at the $25,000 mark, like I said earlier. However, I'd like to be, but I just don't think we're in an environment where it can be at that. We're trying to play fair as a community for everybody involved in this. I don't want it to be liquor license holders against restaurant license holders against the city, and no, we should be able to work together, and we're getting there. So I guess I got to believe we're, if it's 50, if it's 75, 70, wherever it is, I think I'm at the 50 mark probably. I'm open to people's perspective.
Councilman Mormon?
I just wanted to say that I am also very comfortable with the 50 mark.
Any further input? I would ask Councilman Jurgens, I think it would be up to you. You could, since you brought it forward at first, you could recommend to staff to say, bring this forward as an ordinance or as a resolution. What would it be, an ordinance? A resolution, bring it forward, but I would show you the respect of saying you could name your price, and then I would try to amend it.
I'll point out, you do have a second reading, and it's after the second reading that we would put forward the resolution on the fee.
So should we just focus on getting this ordinance in place?
Yeah, I would focus on getting
Okay.
the ordinance in
We
place.
can get back to a fee topic, and we'll just bring forward the ordinance next time.
Yep.
All right, thank you very much.
Mayor,
Yes, Councilman.
maybe we will awaken up more in the community to come forward. I mean, we've seen, 3 full liquor license holders come forward, and we've seen one proponent, maybe a little more. I would guess we may see more. I will say this, Tom was not usually a nice guy in his past. I don't know him real well, but he was being pretty nice by saying, I'll take what I can get, but I would just for the public share that I would guess 25,000. He'd be really, really happy with that also. So Anyway, I think it's a good discussion and look forward to more of that. I really, again, like these limitations and like these clarifications, and it really, really gets rid of the, not entirely, but the public discourse about trusting restaurant owners in the future, and this helps. But also, I would say, and I would add to these types of things that we're talking about on this list of 7, specifically by having a licensed CPA, you're now sticking another person's name and another person's reputation if you want to screw somebody over. And we know in the past, right here in Watertown, that they have tried it, and people are going to try it again. Don't get me wrong, the law gets broke, but I believe number 4 in the certification with a local CPA, I think that's really, really goes a long ways to what his concern was. I forget what his name is, but I call it the waddling duck. And so there's been a lot of progress, and thanks for the conversation on this tonight.
All right, we're going to move on to city council member announcements and introduction for topics of future discussion. Any announcements? Councilman Mormon.
Just a couple quick things, a couple shout outs and a couple of questions. Just wanted to do a quick shout out for Lincoln Scott, Ward A resident. He had 3 touchdowns Friday night against the football game, Arrows against Pierre. So he had a phenomenal game. One question for Justin, over in my ward, just south of Mountain Hope Cemetery. They're trenching what looks like a drainage ditch up there. Just wondering if they're burying storm pipe or if it's going to be like an open drainage way. If you go just south of Mount Hope Cemetery, there's the big open greenway where they'll play like lacrosse and stuff like that on it.
Yeah, it certainly looked like more of a carving out a creek than laying pipe.
That's what I thought, but just was curious. Because in case anybody asked me.
City manager?
The street department is actually doing that, and I believe they're cleaning an existing drainage channel.
Okay. Just widening it out so it flows better over to that manhole where it would drop
Yes.
inlet into
I
the
think what it
storm.
one time was a drainage channel.
Yeah.
Because of
I'm
adjournance.
glad that we're having this discussion because I had 2 or 3 phone calls from people going, you're going to kill all those trees. They're beautiful trees on the south side of that lot if that water doesn't get drained out of there soon. So it's
Yeah.
good to know the city department, street department is on it.
And then, one thing I just want the general public to know is the city is very aware of the massive bump that we have at the bottom of 14th Avenue, where they redid the railroad tracks. And if anybody's calling in or is curious, we are definitely aware that you could probably catch air over it right now just by going the speed limit. So they're gonna be doing some work on that. I spoke with the street department today, and they informed me that they're very much aware of it and gonna be working on trying to get that bad bump out of there. And then just the last thing I had, I just want to do a quick shout out, and I'm gonna read basically verbatim off of what the city put on their Facebook page here for a former coworker of mine when I worked out at the sewer department, by the name of Joe Dame. Congratulations to Joe Dame, Wastewater Collections Operator 2 for the City of Watertown, on receiving the Price Reese Award from the South Dakota Water and Wastewater Association. Joe has been with the city since 2004, serving our community for more than 21 years. The Price Reese Award is given to operators with at least 2 decades of experience in the profession, including 10 years in South Dakota, along with active involvement in the association. I would just like to say, having been a coworker with Joe, he is an absolute incredible employee that is incredibly talented at his job. He spends a lot of time training new guys. He's a wonderful mentor, and he's definitely the type of employee that if you're a supervisor, you would say, I wish I had 20 of them just like him. So just a shout out to Joe.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Any city manager report?
A couple of reports, and thank you, Councilman Mormon, for bringing up Joe. I had Joe on my list. And what I would share is I get asked often about surprises in my job or things I didn't anticipate. And one of the things I didn't really anticipate is the influence that our staff has at a statewide level. So across most of the organizations that our team participates in, we've either had past presidents of the organizations or people such as Joe that go out of their way and get recognized in a meaningful way at the statewide level. And I think that's really a strong selling point for a career with the city of Watertown is not only do we take care of our citizens, we are leaders on a statewide level as well. Two other things for the group. We are planning a work session 1 week from tonight on the 22nd to really review three things. One is a presentation on the city's debt level and the future level of debt as various bonds are either callable or expire. And then secondly, reviewing the capital projects that staff has put forward for 2026 to give you as a council a chance to see what staff is thinking and give your opinions. And then finally, I'd like to go through the 14 council priority projects and just get some clarification to make sure that we are interpreting at the staff level the project the same way that you as a council interpret the project so that we can start to program and schedule those projects in the future. That's what I have for an update.
Thank you. We do have reasons to go into executive session for contractual, legal, and personnel matters. We will not be taking any action when we come out. So therefore, can I get a motion to go into executive session? Motion made by Councilman Allen, seconded by Councilman Jurens. And as I said before, we will not be taking any action when we come out. So I will say good night and God bless you, Watertown. We will adjourn later.